My name is Brandon, and I'm an alcoholic and addict in recovery. And today I'm going to talk some about the family and their role in recovery, reading from the book Staying Sober, a guide to Relapse Prevention by Gorski and Miller. No matter what program of recovery you're working, the family plays a huge role in recovery for an alcoholic or an addict. And what role they play is largely dependent on the program you're working and how much you as an addict involve them and talk to them about what you'd like their role to look like. And one of the reasons that it's so important is that the family can be a key component to preventing recurrence of alcohol or drug use in a recovering addict. But the family also often needs some kind of treatment, and that's why so many people who are in a committed relationship with someone in recovery attend their own support meetings like Al-Anon. There's also children of alcoholics meetings that the family members can go to get support for the own issues that they have to deal with that are unique to family members of addicts, so that they can be involved in the recovery in a more productive way. So I want to read some about what Gorski and Miller talk about here, because it is important for family members to also understand that they play a role in this, and if they're not careful, can actually behave in ways that can contribute to recurrence of drug and alcohol use for an addict. So just going to read some from the book right now and then talk about it a little bit. They say many family members refuse to consider the fact that they have a problem that requires specialized treatment. These family members tend to deny their role in the addicted family and scapegoat personal and family problems upon the addicted person. They develop unrealistic expectations of how family life will improve with abstinence. When these expectations are not met, they blame the addict for the failure, even though he or she may be successfully following a recovery program. Their attitudes and behaviors can become such complicating factors in the addict's recovery that they can contribute to relapse. So I've heard this time and time again from addicts in recovery who get to a frustrating point because they're doing their best, they're following their recovery program, but their spouse or significant other still isn't satisfied with the progress that they've made. Their spouse or significant other had an expectation that the recovery process would be more like flicking on a light switch, where once abstinence was achieved, then everything would get better magically. And so that's why having support groups for spouses who are in a relationship with a recovering addict is such an important part of the process, because that's where these spouses get to go and learn more about what is the recovery process really like? What's a realistic expectation to have for a return to normal? And maybe even a better question is there even a normal to return to? If you have been married to an addict or in a relationship with an addict for a long period of time, you may not even know what life with them outside of their addiction is like. And so there is no normal. Your normal is going to be something new that's established as a result of the process of recovery. So it's important for spouses to have a means of going and talking about their expectations in recovery, what's needed there, and have their own support group where they can discuss this with like-minded people. So it's important to realize that when we're talking about addiction and the impact that it has on the family, we're really talking about a community level disease. disease that affects everybody in this unit of the community. So the authors put it this way: addiction is presented as a family disease that affects all family members, requiring them to get treatment. The addict needs treatment for addiction. Other family members need treatment for co-addiction. We are using the term co-addict to refer to anyone whose life has become unmanageable as a result of living in a committed relationship with an addicted person. Co-addiction is a definable syndrome that is chronic and follows a predictable progression. When people in a committed relationship with an addicted person attempt to control, when people in a committed relationship with an addicted person attempt to control drinking, drug use, or addictive behavior over which they are powerless, they lose control over their own behavior over which they can have power, and their lives become unmanageable. So the authors sum this up with this great little line here. When you try to control what you are powerless over, you lose control over what you can manage. The person who is a spouse of someone who is trying to live in a recovery program needs support themselves, and they need support and often help to break out of the pattern of behavior that they have gotten into as the spouse of an addict. Because the addict is living such an unmanageable life, the spouse has often no choice but to try to step in and manage things for them, and often will try to step in and manage just to gain their own sanity back in some cases. And so it's very, very important for people to recognize that this is a disease that involves the whole family, and the whole family needs some kind of treatment. And the last thing that they say that I'll mention today is the co-addiction eventually becomes independent of the addiction that originally caused it. The symptoms of co-addiction will continue even if the alcoholic becomes sober or joins AA, or the co-addict ends the relationship. So, the symptoms of my addiction: the way I think, the way I behave, what I do, the way I think about myself and the people around me, and try to manage my life. All of those things that I learned how to do in my addiction continue in my recovery unless I do something to change myself. It's the exact same thing with someone who is experiencing co-addiction. So a spouse, a family member who is in a very close relationship with the addict, their behavior will continue the same way unless something is done to help it change it. And that's again why support groups become so important to people in relationships with recovering addicts, because they themselves have changes that they need to make in order to adjust to life with someone in recovery. And so there is a lot more to discuss in this chapter. Tomorrow we'll go through some of the stages of co-addiction, how it manifests in the behavior of the spouse, specifically, although this applies to anybody who's in a close committed relationship with a recovering alcoholic or addict, and then talk some about what are some of the relapse warning signs for co-addiction and what that means and how that can affect the person in recovery. So hope to see you back